Hello and welcome to CX Today. My name is Charlie. I am the senior editor here, and today I am thrilled to bring you a discussion around whether an AI-centric strategy is really the best option in enterprise communications. A controversial topic perhaps, but for joining me for that discussion are two fantastic speakers, Dominic McDonald, CEO of Ulap, and Dom Black, the Growth Director and Principal Analyst at Cavell. Thanks both very much for joining me for this chat. And now let's get right into the discussion. And I just want to start by framing this conversation a little bit and citing a recent Washington University study, which found that when marketing tech vendors used the term artificial intelligence within their product descriptions, they actually reduced their customers' purchase intentions. And I think this is a really interesting study. And Dom Black, I think I'll start with you on this. Do you particularly kind of have any inkling as to why that might be? And from what you see in the broader enterprise communications market, do you think it could also be a trend that applies there too?
I think the interesting thing with AI is over the last 2 years, we've seen pretty much every single major vendor race towards AI and use it as a marketing term of, hey, we need to be doing this. And I think that there's been some great innovations coming out which are using AI to help different things happen. But I think for the end customer, we've got to be really careful about when and where we are using the term AI. And we do a lot of research on the market, and some, as you mentioned, some very intelligent people from the Washington State University who, unfortunately, probably a bit more intelligent than myself, came up with this study. And I think when I read through that study, I thought the really interesting takeaways from it was it's on a high risk technology, high risk deployments that they find that the use of AI is reducing the purchasing intention, where people are seeing the product having high risk either to their business or high risk to them as a consumer or high risk of things going wrong. The use of AI within that starts to actually change their purchasing habit to go, actually, we don't want to use that through there. So I think when we apply this to enterprise communications, a lot of IT buyers probably see their communication solutions as high risk, especially when you look at the contact center, where you've got high availability required and things not going wrong. One of our studies recently where we looked at the buying habits of different enterprise IT buyers globally, some fascinating insights came out about why they might not want to use AI. If you look in Germany, France, UK, number one reason comes through is the privacy of the company's data when using AI tools. There's a big fear around AI acting in unintended ways, employees using AI improperly. But still, that number one thing that comes through in a lot of countries is the privacy of companies' data. If you dig into some other countries as well, for France, for example, what comes quite highly there is the loss of key skills due to replacement by AI. So in those countries where there's a high propensity around workers' rights, let's say, where France has a long history of that, the use of AI is putting some fear in those IT buyers around, well, we might lose some key skills within this, and we want to make sure that humans are still empowered to do their jobs, and it's still going to be high availability of unemployment. When we look in the German market, the accidental breaking of customer privacy and protection of regulations comes very highly of why people might not want to use AI in that as well. So I think there's some key reasons why people might not want to use AI. And you've really got to think about that from an enterprise communication standpoint. If we're going to use AI within our products, is that actually going to scare off some of our customers? And especially in some of those markets who are a little less or maybe a little bit more conservative around technology adoption, moving with an AI message may not be the best way forward. So I think you really got to look at what your product is, what your customer is looking for, and whether you want to use AI in that messaging as well going forward.
Yeah, that's a really great answer. Thanks for that, Dom. And I think it's really interesting, actually, when you look at, you mentioned the contact center space, there's also been some quite high profile lawsuits around the AI not affecting the vendor, but actually affecting their customers recently, which is also surprising. But yeah, lots of really great stuff there. And I'll turn over to you now, Dominic McDonald. Sorry, I'm struggling with the two Doms today. I was wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit more about kind of why brands should consider taking a non-AI centric approach within enterprise communications.
Yeah, look, I think that's a really, really great question. And I think we have to look at the breakdown of each of the elements. And the communications layer is where the engagement with the customer occurs, but where does that data go? So there's plenty of opportunity for the artificial intelligence and automation to occur in places like the CRM layer, but not necessarily at the communication layer where the conversation actually occurs. So I think, I've been very vocal with our Ulap voice offering, which is a no AI approach. However, I'm not anti-AI. I'm for the security and also for the usability and understanding the data privacy laws of each jurisdiction that need to be reviewed and considered. And obviously, the United Nations have the Summit for the AI for Good coming up, the next session. And there's going to be a whole host of regulatory coming around AI. And I'm not too sure if the vendors are ready yet for the complete implementation of those forthcoming regulations. So that's just a sort of bit of a background to look at this. So there is an appropriate use case, but I think there's also an appropriate use case to look at where AI is not necessarily needed.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that again, really good stuff there, and I do understand the point, especially kind of where it might be better suited in CRM space, but not particularly perhaps in regards to voice. Although when it comes to security and stuff, there are definitely great applications there. I don't know, Don Black, if you would maybe add anything to that at all.
Yeah, I think it's where we've seen AI from a perspective of where it's being built into communication products at the moment from the UCaaS side. So really around enhancing that meeting experience. So we're seeing call recording, we're seeing transcription analytics, some really cool stuff coming out from the hardware and conferencing side of things as well. On the contact center, obviously the big focus is really around virtual agents, chatbots, and how they're going to be performing. But I think also we're seeing more and more focusing on the agent performance and agent experience. So bringing in agent performance and coaching, as well as things like transcription, the summarization tools as well, where that's playing a big role in the contact center to make sure the data coming out of those conversations is going back in the right way. So I think there's been a lot of focus around AI and where AI is working. And I think one of the interesting things for me in the future is we talk around, and I think the industry talks around AI a lot as a product. So we're doing AI. And it's like, well, no, actually AI is the enabler for features or functionality in between that. And I think I agree with Dominic that we are coming to a point where regulation is getting too high, and there's going to, well, not too high, but there's going to be a lot of regulation coming out. I think a lot of vendors really need to look around, okay, how are we doing this? How are we doing this properly? I've always used the analogy, which is almost like social media in the early 2000s, where everyone used to put all of their personal data on social media without any real thought process around what might this look like in the future, and then only need to see what happened with social engineering. We're seeing the direct advertising coming through going, well, maybe we don't want everything on social media. I think the last couple of years, we've seen a lot of businesses go, let's give everything into AI and see what we get out the back of it, not thinking, well, actually, what happens to our customers' data through that? What is that AI engine being trained on? Have we got rights for that to forget that data as well? So I think we're coming to a point now where businesses are going, actually, how do we use AI properly? And that's going to really cause the vendors to go, well, what do we need to do to make sure we're compliant with every single one of our organizations and also every country and jurisdiction that we're working in as well?
Yeah, again, lots of really good stuff there. It actually reminds me of a Harvard Business Review article that I read maybe a couple of years ago now, but it was talking about sort of the danger of just going in for the big bang sort of AI boil the ocean projects and how much simpler, more strategic, kind of low-hanging fruit projects tended to be more successful. And I think that still does hold a lot of truth. But anyway, I'm diverting the conversation. Let's bring it back to whether this AI-centric approach is really best suited. And I guess this conversation is being had more in certain verticals than others. I don't know, Dominic McDonald, if you maybe seen it particularly within certain industries and why maybe there is it such a prolific conversation?
I think yes, and this is a great opportunity. The verticals where we see the greatest concern are the law, the legal fraternity, and financial services industry. These are the two critical ones that are now really reviewing this and going, what's right for our businesses? You mentioned, some cases that earlier on about customer data, but obviously vendors are going to be held accountable based on jurisdiction rules, right? So as a vendor, as well as a service provider and a telco, we navigate these difficult jurisdictions and these different laws in each of those different countries that we operate in, which is now over 100. But in terms of verticals, there's a positive to both. There's the mass market where, we talk about the old days of a, intelligent chatbot where it's, heavily automated with some, AI that can be injected. That's a really great use case for, mass market getting information. What time does the bus leave? What time does the train leave? Great, wonderful use case. But when it involves personal data, I think it's, vertical agnostic. And I think that's just something that you really need to consider is what is the data? And once that data is there, Dom mentioned about social media that, hey, things are targeted based on what you post, then things are going to be targeted, which may be for the right or wrong use. And I think we have to say this from the beginning, is that artificial intelligence is not inherently good or bad. It's not a bad technology, it's not a good technology, it's a technology, which then opens up the opportunity for misuse or good. So that is the challenge that's now being faced with us is there's lots of opportunity for misuse, and I can give you really lots of scary use cases that people don't want to talk about and brush under the carpet. And there's really exciting positive use cases in healthcare and disease, working out what's in different human anatomy and things like that. There's a wonderful array of different positives as well. But I think what's really critical from a CX point of view is my data safe as the end user customer? And that's really the question that needs to be addressed.
Absolutely, and I'm sure Don Black, you'd maybe concur with that too.
Yeah, I think it's industry by industry, and chatting to a couple of financial services businesses, one of the largest globally yesterday, around how they're using AI and what they're looking at. These companies move so slowly in adopting new technologies that AI is a view for them of something they might do in the future, but a lot of businesses still haven't moved to the cloud. So we've got to take this not only looking at an approach of what verticals is it going to be working at, because there's still some verticals that are so nervous about hosting any of their data or those conversations in the cloud, let alone going, well, actually, let's train our data on a public AI solution or something like that. So I think there's a lot of verticals that will not be moving. A lot of those highly compliant ones will be as well. I think where we've seen AI features and functionality, I mean, our latest survey, when we looked at the service provider market selling unified communication solutions, only 17% of those said that they'll be giving away AI features for free in that. So there is also a cost discussion to have on this of, will small businesses be able to adopt AI? We've seen Microsoft obviously Copilot, $30 per user per month, Zoom offering their AI services for free. So there'll be a really interesting mixture of that of, well, it may be adopted by all companies at some point in the long run, but actually, will small businesses be cut out of this in the long run because they can't afford it, or it's not viable for them to do this? So I agree with Dominic's assertion around healthcare and around financial services of those highly regulated law firms, are highly regulated industries where customer data is key. But I think it's still large swathes of the economy that will not be able to use AI services or use AI. So that will hinder adoption as well as all the other issues that we've talked about throughout here. I still do personally believe AI is a great enabler, and it will be, if it is used for good, can drive huge benefits. But I still think we're a long way off universal adoption and IT managers going, let's do this because we have to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I've seen some stats from Gartner, which I'll try and dig out and Ed put up on the screen now for everyone, which kind of shows some of the actually surprising failure rates that AI projects are having, which kind of aligns to your point very well there, Dom. But to kind of close off this interview, I don't know, Dominic McDonald, maybe I'll end with you. And obviously, Ulap does quite a lot in this space. And I don't know, maybe if you can tell us a little bit how you're supporting brands that maybe want to take this non-AI centric approach that we've been discussing.
Yeah, so first things first, here at Ulap, we have this long tail approach where we help our partners and vendor partners help their customers and our customers long tail into all of the far-flung jurisdictions around the world. So we've now been able to deliver services in over 113, 14 countries now. So that means that, and we're licensed in very hard to reach emerging economies. So being, under the bus in the regulatory world, so to speak, and being a member of the International Telecommunications Union, so there are not too many vendors and service providers who are a member, by the way. So what that means is this has given us an insight to have this difficult conversation. Other vendors will be going, if you're not talking about AI, your competitor is talking about AI. So that's a really hard conversation because, I'm talking about a topic that could be detrimental to revenues in the future because of this approach. However, the messaging around this is we want to do it right in a manner that can be done in a process in the right way. And there are great positive use cases around it, but how do we help customers navigate? We navigate that by making sure that they've got the regulatory compliance in place to make sure they're operating within the the data privacy laws of the jurisdiction. So at the moment, AI is regulated through data privacy laws. So there may be not direct regulation around AI, but there is regulation around, the privacy of data. So that is going to expand. This weekend, I fly to New York. There's the, Summit for the Future, which is going to have a real great deal about, how artificial intelligence and how that's going to be evolved. You've got to remember there are jurisdictions around the world that we operate in, over 100 million people, and close to 30% don't have access to electricity and running water, and the median age is 24 years old. So you look at that emerging economies with the great potential of what they've got, there's already an inequality between the developed and the emerging markets in terms of what accesses they have, let alone SMB, like Dom mentioned earlier. So I think what we do is we really help organizations understand that risk profile and help them get that established moving forward.
Absolutely. And I think kind of given the current state of the market, obviously we've mentioned particular lawsuits, but also heightened regulations and countries where you must stick to certain data rules too. It's some great work that Ulap's doing in this space. And I will leave a link to Ulap's website for anybody who wants to dig a little deeper. But for now, I think it's a great place to end today's chat. And I want to thank both Doms very much for joining me today, and thank everybody for watching. Bye for now.